Okay, so I guess first question, like how did you come across the subject?
So I actually went to the University of Washington, and while I was at the University of Washington, I was doing a lot of student activism and community organizing as a student organizer. And one of the things that a lot of students of color on campus were talking about back then was a lack of representation, which we're still talking about now at UW. And so I taught a class actually after I graduated, after I found out that Bruce Lee had gone to the University of Washington. So when I found out that Bruce Lee attended, and not only did he attend, he met his wife there. He started a school on the Ave. He had this history of the UW. It really made me wonder, why wasn't there anything on campus that represented Bruce Lee? And so I taught a class called Bruce Lee Dedication with the hopes of building a statue or something on campus to represent Bruce. And just in the process of doing that project, I got to meet a lot of people close to Bruce Lee, including his daughter, Shannon Lee. And I also found out about Taky Kimura. So Taky Kimura is Bruce Lee's best friend and senior most student. They met when Bruce arrived from Hong Kong when he was 18 years old in Seattle. And Taky was older than Bruce. He was about 36, and Bruce was about 18. But Taky had gone, as a Japanese American, had gone through the internment camps of World War II, had a long history, um, and so met Bruce, and they sparked a friendship that lasted the rest of their lives. And Taky continued on the legacy of Bruce's original school of Jeet Kune Do here in Washington State. So I got to meet Taky, and as I learned from him, and I actually started taking Jeet Kune Do classes um, with him and his son Andy Kimura. And the more I found out about his story, I was just excuse me. The more I found out about his story, the more I was just impressed by the legacy that this man was carrying on, the loyalty that he had for his friend Bruce Lee. And the more I worked on Bruce Lee stuff, the more I was like, this is a huge part of Bruce's story that needs to get told. So inevitably, we came together as a film crew, Indie Genius Media, and decided to do a short little mini documentary on Taki, especially considering that he was turning 96. So we thought this was a great time to share his story, to collect his story, for him to see it, for his friends and family to have it, and to just add on to another beautiful element of Bruce Lee's impact on the world.
Sounds great. I was wondering how many other students you think of former students of Bruce Lee are living in Seattle? Is there like a group you think somewhere that you know of where former students all gathered?
Yeah, so the Jeet Kune Do school that they started was in the 1960s, and Taki continued teaching that school, and like I said, his son carries on the lineage of that school to this day. As far as original students that worked with Bruce from that time, I'm not sure if there are a lot still around or even alive. We're talking 60 years ago. Um, so it's hard to say who in Seattle is an original student. I know there's a lot of folks, Mr. Glover, Mr. Kimura, other martial artists. Obviously, Bruce went down to California, and Dan Inosanto has been a huge proponent of Jeet Kune Do. But I do know that his legacy, Bruce's legacy here in Seattle, has been legendary. He went to Garfield. He went to Edison Tech, which is now Seattle Community College. Went to the University of Washington, like I mentioned earlier. He served food in Chinatown International District of Seattle. So yeah, his imprint in the town is legendary. And one thing that a lot of people don't know actually is that both him and Jimi Hendrix share the same birthday of November 27th, I believe. And technically, there was a moment in time at Garfield where both Bruce Lee and Jimi Hendrix celebrated their birthday because they both were Bulldogs. And I think Bruce was maybe a couple years older. Now, I don't know if that happened, if they walked the hallway and gave each other a high five for happy birthday, or what the issue was. But technically, at one point in time, um, Bruce and Jimmy celebrated their birthday at Garfield High School, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. I wonder who would
Yeah.
be a part of that class. I mean, people actually was part of either Jimmy's class or Bruce's class, and remember seeing those moments.
I've talked to a couple people who, maybe one or two, who were around then, and they told me about Bruce in particular. They said that Bruce was, um, apparently he'd fight you. You know, if you had an issue with him, he would come and get you. But he wasn't a bully per se. But he was someone who definitely stood out from the crowd and had a swagger about him. Um, so yeah, he made an imprint, that's for sure.
Have you had a chance to show this film to any parts of the martial arts community outside of your subject?
Yeah, so this actually was initially this was shared through Bruce Lee official fan page. So we worked with Shannon Lee, Bruce's daughter, and her foundation and her organization to kind of get the okay to film this and put it out. Also with the Wing Luke Asian Museum. So it hit a lot of the martial artists demographic, right? Like people from all walks of life, specifically with the martial arts, internationally, have been, you know, hitting us up and saying they really enjoyed the video. I mean, Bruce's impact worldwide is huge. He's one of the most famous people of all time, and martial arts is so diverse, right? There's so many different forms of martial arts, and Bruce Lee is really, you know, he's like the Michael Jordan of martial arts, you know. So there's been a lot of people from all forms, and all mediums of martial arts that have shared it, that have reached out to us and have enjoyed it, and it's been really, really cool to see that, especially like the international folks who hit us from Hong Kong or Italy and or Argentina or something, and they're like, "Wow, this is really cool stuff." So yeah, we've definitely reached a lot of folks with that.
That's awesome. Is this your first film festival since the pandemic hit?
This is my first film festival since the pandemic hit. I know a lot of the film festivals have been going online even pre-COVID, to save some money. But you know, obviously, with a film festival, the coolest part, I guess, is, you know, meeting people and interacting with folks at the festival. But you know, we're in a whole nother age. I'm just grateful that we're able to share our story, that it's coupled with so many other amazing stories from the Pacific Northwest. Um, and it's a unique opportunity for us to really share this story. And the fact that Taki's still ticking and is going to be able to check this out with his friends and family online, you know, because a lot of folks can't necessarily make it to the film festival, right? So this actually kind of broadens the scope a little bit and allows us to maybe reach a bigger audience. So it's pretty cool.
Is he still 96? Did you complete this not that long ago?
Yeah, he did. He turned 96 in, I want to say, late March or early March or late February, around that time. Yeah, it was right before COVID, around the time COVID was slowly starting to hit the US. You know, he had a birthday party, one of the last, that's actually one of the last public events that we went to. He had his 96th birthday party at Ivers down there in Seattle, and we showed the video. And there was a bunch of really cool people there, martial artists and instructors and stuff like that. So yeah, yeah, he just turned 96 this year.
Yeah, that's awesome. I hope to be so lucky, you know, to get to live
Yeah,
alone.
right. Totally.
But definitely. Well, yeah. Thanks for doing this. Is there anything you want people to know about this project? You know, it's going to be planned starting next week online. What days is yours screening?
I think all of the films are screening the whole time. So that's
Okay, yeah,
another
that's
cool
fine.
thing about it, is that they're all accessible between, I think, the 17th and the 23rd, or around that. Um, so yeah, we're grateful to share this story. Um, like I've said before, I really feel that Taki is the yin to Bruce's yang in a lot of ways, because Bruce was this superstar, you know, although he didn't like that term. He was a super actor, as he liked to say it, but he really was an icon. He really became an icon. and just exploded in popularity at the age of 32. And in the meantime, Taky was teaching and still kind of pushing the school. And now Taky's 96, which is 3 times as old as Bruce was when he passed away. So it's very much it's interesting balance that they both have given each other. One being a huge icon and star, and the other, and then having a short life, while the other just kind of being committed to the small school in Seattle and now being almost 100 years old. And so I feel like giving him his credit, his due, is the most important part of this, to show, that part is just as important, right? As the Bruce Lee part, the Taky Kimura part is just like that. So that's why we call it the Heart of the Dragon. Taky was Bruce's best friend. So it was more than just a student. He was really, really his best friend. He'd write him and talk to him all the time up until the day that he passed. So to me, it's a very heartwarming and endearing story, and hopefully gives folks a little bit of a history lesson and some inspiration during this pretty tough time that we're all facing.
It's just
Okay.
want to say, peace. Thanks again. Appreciate you doing this interview and putting your film out. Recommend everyone
Thank
check it
you.
out.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Peace.